Hello everyone, my name's David Hockaday. I'm the Programme Oversight Team Leader working with Oxfam GB. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about remote partnering and my experience to date. So I've been working in partnership brokering for a few years, and in one of my last roles I was involved in a really interesting collaboration. I was working for the Start Network. And we were a member-based organisation, basically, and there was a small team of us who were working as kind of brokers on behalf of the membership. We had an extremely interesting tension. On one hand, we were representing or brokering on behalf of a member-based organisation, or member-based network. On the other hand, that member-based network were wanting us to push them out of behaviours and ways of working that had been bedeviling the aid sector for many years. So on one hand we were disruptors, but on the other hand we were working for a group of people who would effectively, perhaps even openly, call themselves part of the status quo or part of the existing architecture. Personally, I found this extremely difficult. And this manifested in one of the roles that I had, which was around aligning the goals of the network to the business case that a donor had set us, to a series of projects that we had begun working on around capacity building. I sat in the what, let's call it a secretariat, and my role was to try and broker the members into developing these projects at the same time as working towards a business case that the donor had set, at the same time as trying to push this transformative change agenda. It was obvious that there were lots of tensions from the very beginning, lots of different expectations from the different stakeholders. Something I learned very early on was to have conversations about the motivations, or each partner within the collaboration, what motivated them, what brought them to the table. And this was really, really useful, because to be able to get clarity on those motivations meant that you could begin to have conversations, meant that I could begin to have conversations around what everyone was offering and what the added value that they could bring to the table, and also, really importantly, what people expected from one another. And these mutual obligations, once you tease them out and understanding what the motivations are, become really powerful in terms of being able to set what you might call a collaboration agreement, or at least trying to find alignment. So this is something we did, or I did, when I had something like to develop something like between 10 and 15 projects that were meant to dovetail into this business case from our back donor, but at the same time we're trying to push the sector towards a different way of working. For each one of the projects we had collaboration agreements. Why were people coming to the table? What fascinated me was after 3 or 4 of these conversations, there was not one partner in any one of those conversations who was at the table because they wanted money. And that really shocked me, because I assumed that actually that was probably one of the fundamental reasons why people were part of the collaboration. No, I was really surprised. People were actually coming to the table because they wanted to push a particular issue that they had held true and dear for many years, and they realised that through this collaboration they actually had a platform to do it. Other people felt like technically they wanted to push the sector further forward, and there was a myriad of reasons as to why people wanted to collaborate. This was great. It made me as a broker feel quite motivated and quite inspired to work on behalf of the members. The other great thing about collaboration agreements is if the collaboration is starting to go off track further down the line, you can come back to the original agreement and understand why is it that people came to the table in the first place, look at it as to where you've got to now in the collaboration, and work out whether you're still on line with what drove people's original aspirations and ideas. Understanding the energy behind people's engagement is a really key area for a broker, because you can then try and seek out win-win situations in any conversation. So these were some interesting areas for me. Also around, because we were working remotely, we only ever got a chance probably once every quarter to sit down and talk to one another face to face. Now, I started off with these conversations fairly formulaic, looking at things like log frames, looking at things like budgets versus actuals, looking at things like terms of reference. These things are really important in collaborations. But what I also learned was to carve out time on the agenda for people to explore in a more creative way. Things like visioning, things like aspirations, things like hopes. What I found was once you start engaging more creative techniques of conversation, asking people to vision and to draw maybe where they see success for this particular collaboration, I started to draw out conversations that would never normally happen in a fairly traditional or formulaic agenda, and instead started to see and started to tease out areas and new ideas and new innovations that came out of non-standard conversations. This is a personal learning for me, and it felt a bit uncomfortable, to be honest, initially, having conversations with senior managers using postcards and pictures and asking people to describe their hopes and fears. It felt a bit uncomfortable, if I'm honest. But what I found was those conversations can be really powerful and can drive the partnership to places where perhaps you wouldn't get to if you set yourself to a traditional agenda. The last point I wanted to make here was something I learned fairly early on, which was around trust and feedback. For me, I think a lot of collaborations can fail because there are not regular opportunities for people to have open and honest conversations with one another. And I think as the role of the broker is really, really important to set those spaces within the collaboration to ensure that people are able to have conversations, to make sure people are able to check in on original assumptions, and to make sure that people can ask questions about one another. Are you really bringing to the table what you said you were going to do as part of the original agreement making right at the beginning? Are you getting out of this what it is you wanted to get out from the first place? If not, why not? If not, how can you change? And maybe even, do you need to walk away from this collaboration? So those kind of conversations are really helpful to set a precedent for having truthful conversations with one another. So that's all I wanted to share at this stage. So good luck with the rest of the course, and bye for now.